Hello there, this is Dusty Thunder with another Reddit story for you. This one is a little bit special because it's a his side, her side from the Am I Overreacting subreddit. This is the his side, her side story title, Am I Overreacting for Getting Upset When My Wife Had Another Man in the Delivery Room? Last month, my 28 male wife, 25 female, called me in a frenzy, telling me that her water broke and that she was going into labor. This was incredibly shocking to both of us because she was still early on in the pregnancy. The problem with this is that I was already on the road about 30 minutes away tending to my mother, who had just called to tell me that she was in an accident. Not a significant one, but it still shook her up. I told my wife to call an ambulance because I would not be turning around to drive her to the hospital and witness her birth. She yelled, cursed, cried, and screamed at me through the phone while I tried to calm her by telling her to call my sister if she didn't want to call an ambulance, since my sister only lives 20 to 25 minutes away. What? Hold on. Time out, time out, time out. I don't think the words I have read on this page were conveyed with the proper gravity for the situation. So I will reread it with the proper gravity for the situation. I told my wife to call an ambulance because I would not be the one turning around to drive her to the hospital and witness her birth. We don't even really have to read any more of the story. Let's go ahead and do this. What the bro? There's no other way to go now. After this, she went silent and hung up, and I didn't hear from her for about 1 hour and a half. I checked my phone for the first time since getting to my mother. My sister sent me a video of my wife actively giving birth while holding her male friend's hand, the way women squeeze their husband's hands for comfort during labor. My sister immediately followed up the video with the text that said, "When are you going to get here?" I ignored this text and asked her if she's the one who drove my wife to the hospital, and she responded, "No." I asked her who did, and she informed me that it was my wife's male friend who lives only 10 minutes away. I ended up just asking my sister for the full story while I drove my mother back to her home since everything was sorted with the accident. Long story short, instead of calling my sister or an ambulance, my wife called her male friend that I've always disliked but never informed my wife. I told my sister to get on FaceTime with me, but not to make it obvious to anyone else in the delivery room, and I would stay silent on the other end. During the call, I saw my wife's friend rubbing her back, wiping her tears, comforting her when she screamed and cried, etc. I couldn't bear the sight, and I ended the FaceTime and told my sister to inform my wife that I would be at the hospital the next day after work whenever she got out of labor. So you decided right then you weren't even going? You're like the I'm only taking my real kids guy. You're just hell-bent on destruction at this point. What are you doing? My sister called almost 2 hours later to tell me she left the hospital and that my wife would be staying the night. Well, yeah. The next day around 3 to 4 p.m., when I went over to the hospital to see my wife and newborn son, she was not trying to hide her anger and saltiness from anyone in the room. That included mostly my family and some of hers. When I asked her why she was acting this way, she rolled her eyes and told me to leave her the alone in front of everyone. Later, when I tried to hold my son, she snatched him from my hands. In this hospital, visiting hours ended at 8, but all the guests, excluding me, left by 6. When we were left alone, I finally got the chance to have a conversation with her about why she's being so salty on a memorable day that should have been filled with love and joy. She responded by getting angry and mumbling something about my audacity to miss her birth and be surprised that she's angry. I'm not proud of this, but in response, I called her a cheater for inviting another man into the delivery room in place of her husband. This spiraled into a short, full-blown argument between us that eventually ended with a NICU nurse coming back with a baby. How did his ass not get kicked out of this room by now? It's been a month since then, and my wife only refused to our son as her son, her baby, etc. I've tried to get closer to her by sitting down and trying to have a deep conversation about our family's future, and she flat out told me that she was never having another child with me after what happened, which deeply hurt me. Last week, I heard my wife on the phone talking about who would be godfathers and mothers to our son. She told whoever was on the other end of that she would be choosing the male friend as godfather because he was there for me when OP couldn't care less. This post is all over the place, but let me know if I overreacted in the argument when I saw her in the delivery room after she gave birth, or if anyone knows how to fix my marriage and family. Edit. No, this is not rage bait. I genuinely need advice. Sorry if the wording made it seem that way. I also didn't know the accident was minor until I arrived, and everyone suggesting we get a divorce doesn't know the meaning and dedication of marriage and family. No, sir! You do not know the meaning of dedication and marriage and family. You, sir, have chosen not to have one. The audacity to make that statement after the bullshit you just pulled. What the? If you have any questions, please message me if you want me to answer. Okay, let's get to the her side. I can't wait. I can't wait, girl. I hope she's just like, yeah, this guy's the biggest piece of shit on the planet, and I'm leaving him. Also, it sounds like he left when the baby came back. He said he wasn't going to the hospital to witness her birth. See some consistency here, dude? Her birth, her child. She's been referring to him as her child now because you said it was her birth. You already... her side. Update for Am I Overreacting for getting upset at my wife for having another man in the delivery room? I'm the wife from that post. A friend found it and sent it to me. Still don't get why he didn't post it on a burner account. Anyway, I decided to make an account to respond, clear some things up, and tell my side of the story as briefly as I can. Yes, I did call my husband to tell him that my water broke, and he did tell me that he wouldn't make it and to call an ambulance or his sister, who has called me a slur to my face before, so I don't know why he thought that would be a good idea. I did not call his sister because we don't get along, and I have a friend that lives closer to us. He ends up driving me to the hospital, and his sister pulls into the lot almost right after us. Don't know how she knew I was going, so now I'm in pain, scared, upset at my husband, and have someone I don't like with me during my most vulnerable moments. I was holding my male friend's hand because why wouldn't I be? Now, it was very obvious that sister-in-law was recording me in some way because she was basically isolating herself from everyone else in the room with her phone to her chest and pointed at me. Wait. Just super sneaky, sis. Way to go. I didn't think that she was on FaceTime with anyone. I just thought she was filming me, which is equally as weird as I'm not sure why I brushed it off or didn't ask about it when I was more stable. My husband did in fact show up the next day around 4 p.m. and tried to act like nothing happened, and I was very moody and rude to him, which was probably very immature of me. This later broke out into an argument after everyone left where he called me a cheater, and I also said some very nasty things. I have been isolating me and my son from him as much as I can and trying to be less dependent on him in some aspects. The reason for this is because I feel like I can't trust him to keep my son safe or change his diaper or pour my breast milk into a bottle and feed him or burp him or basically do anything for my son at all. Notice the my's there, not ours. It is true that my son and I are financially dependent on my husband, like he has stated before, and because of this fact, I cannot divorce him, not now at least, because I do not have any support system or family that lives near us to help me and my son. I am still in school. I know staying for the kids isn't healthy, but my family has recommended that I stay for the sake of my schooling and my son's happiness. My husband has stated many times that he apologized, but these, quote, apologies were just along the lines of, I'm sorry, will you stop being angry now? That's a brozo apology. Like that's like the brozo apology. I'm sorry, will you stop being angry now? I'm sorry, are we okay now? No, I am not sleeping with my male friend. We've been friends since 2nd grade and there's never been anything romantic or sexual between us. Please don't mind my spelling or grammar. English is not my first language, nor am I from an English-speaking country, and this was also rushed. Feel free to ask any questions because I tend to leave details out. This whole thing feels as unreal as it sounds, LOL. Also, a nurse never came back with the baby after the argument. That's not even how it works. So he ended up just leaving. 4 p.m. the next day. This guy is the worst. It's the worst. It's not, this is more than being an ASCON one. This is more than being a brozo. Like the obvious play, because it's your baby and it's your wife birthing that baby early, which is like red flags, alert, something's not right. It's more dangerous now. Immediately turn the car around and call your sister to take over getting to your mom. That is the play that every dad on this planet would make, save you, sir, who now... Yeah. Just because I said I wasn't going to be there doesn't mean you could have someone else there. When I said that I wasn't going to be there, it meant that you were going to be sitting there alone, so that you would appreciate me more when I did show up. But you had your male friend, Chad, there, and he was rubbing your back, and you were holding his hand, and it sure looked like you guys were a married couple, and that hurt me. Should have turned the car around, you jabroni. You did all of this to yourself, and all the friend did was show up and be supportive. He did the basic minimum thing that another human would do. This was your wife, and you chose not to do those things. You no longer have a say. You will soon no longer have a family. I hope you can surgically remove your head from your own ass, go back to the hospital, ask them to deliver that, because you're going to need it to be any kind of dad to this kid. The only happy ending from the story at all could be that you guys separate, you eventually figure out how big of a tool bag you are, fix it, and then you can have a decent relationship with your kid. That is the best I can hope for you, you dumbass.